Bulgaria. Land of rugged mountains. Land of hidden fortresses. Land of roses and fragrant valleys. Beech and fir forests cover slopes that have never known roads. Silent rivers carve gorges through the rock. Golden domes shimmer in the morning sun. Welcome to Bulgaria. Welcome to one of the oldest nations in Europe. Known for its hidden treasures, this is a land where mountains guard ancient forests, where villages preserve rituals passed down through centuries, and where Thracian ruins hold secrets 3,000 years old. But let's start from the beginning. Bulgaria stretches across the southeastern corner of Europe, wedged between the Danube River to the north, which separates it from Romania, and the borders with Greece and Turkey to the south, making it a natural bridge between Central Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean. Its territory is shaped by three major geographic regions that divide the country. There is the Danubian Plain to the north, with the Danube River flowing for nearly 500 kilometers, or about 310 miles. Then there is the Balkan mountain range at the center, and the basins and southern mountains to the south. And this very structure explains the dramatic landscape differences across the country, with nature finding its most precious refuge between the highlands and the plains. In fact, a third of the territory is covered by forests, largely still untouched, where brown bears, wolves, lynx, chamois, and over 400 species of birds live protected inside national parks, making Bulgaria the second most biodiverse country in Europe. To the east, the Black Sea coastline stretches for roughly 378 kilometers, or about 235 miles, alternating medieval towns like Nessebar with untamed headlands like Cape Kaliakra, all the way to large modern beach resorts. But Bulgaria is not just nature. It is also one of the oldest cradles of European civilization. Founded in 681 AD, it is one of the most ancient states on the continent and has never changed its name in over 1,300 years. Plovdiv, its second largest city, for example, has been continuously inhabited for over 8,000 years, making it one of the oldest cities in the world. After Italy and Greece, Bulgaria is the European country with the highest number of archaeological discoveries. And from this very land, something was born that forever changed the face of Slavic culture. The Cyrillic alphabet, in fact, did not originate in Russia as many believe, but in Bulgaria in the 9th century. It developed from the disciples of Saint Cyril and Methodius, and from here spread to Russia, Serbia, Ukraine, and all the other Slavic nations. The fragrances of this land are just as unique as its history. In central Bulgaria, the Rose Valley stretches between the mountains, producing roughly 85% of the world's rose oil, an essence that for centuries has traveled from Bulgarian valleys to the most prized perfumes on the planet. And alongside the rose, another symbol has made this nation famous around the world. We are talking about Bulgarian yogurt, whose unmistakable flavor comes from a bacterium that exists naturally only in this land. Bulgaria, therefore, is far more than just a country. It is a crossroads of worlds, a place where forests still hide the wolf's footsteps, and where an alphabet born among these valleys gave voice to entire peoples. But now let's discover the most incredible and iconic places of this nation. Belogradchik Rocks. "200 million years. That is how long it took to sculpt these towers of red sandstone in the northwestern corner of Bulgaria. Wind, rain, and frost worked the rock layer by layer, creating shapes that local people learned to recognize. There is the Madonna, the Knight, and the stone mushrooms, for example. Some columns rise over 200 meters, or nearly 660 feet. The Romans built a fortress on top of them, and every civilization that followed reinforced it, because these rocks were not just a spectacle, but a natural defense. Walking through them at sunset, when the light ignites the red of the stone, completely shifts your sense of human scale. Plovdiv. "6,000 years of history, and people still live here." Plovdiv is not a museum, it is a city that is simply kept on existing. Right next to modern streets, you find Roman stadiums that once held 30,000 people, and nobody pays much attention anymore. The old quarter climbs across 3 hills, the famous Tipita, with the 19th century houses that jut out over the street. Their upper floors are wider than their bases, a construction technique typical of the Bulgarian Renaissance. Kapana, the old craftsman's quarter, is now filled with creative workshops and murals. It was also the European Capital of Culture in 2019. But the truth is that Plovdiv has always been one. Rila Monastery. At 1,147 meters, or about 3,760 feet above sea level, inside a narrow valley surrounded by forested mountains, the Rila Monastery has existed since the 10th century. It was founded by a hermit, Ivan Rilsky, who was searching for isolation. And the place delivered it perfectly. For centuries, this site protected the Bulgarian language, books, and national identity throughout the Ottoman occupation. Monks copied manuscripts, while the world outside changed. The current structure, rebuilt in the 19th century after a fire, strikes visitors with its black and white striped arches and its frescoes that cover every inch of the church's exterior walls. Today it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and remains an active monastery with monks who still live there. Veliko Tarnovo. The city grows vertically. Its houses cling to steep hillsides along the Yantra River, which has carved a canyon right through the heart of the settlement. At the very top of that canyon sits the Tsarevets Fortress, which dominates the city. Between the 12th and 14th centuries, it protected the seat of power of the entire country, when Veliko Tarnovo was the capital of the Second Bulgarian Empire. Today, the restored walls stretch across the entire hilltop, and at the summit stands the Patriarchal Church of the Holy Ascension, rebuilt in the 20th century with frescoes that blend Orthodox iconography and modern art. There is also Gurko Street, a row of traditional houses perched on the edge of the cliff, and it is the point where architecture and geography become one. Rila National Park. At 2,925 meters, or 9,596 feet, the Rila Massif holds the highest peak in the entire Balkans, Mount Musala. At its base, vast pine forests cover the slopes up to a certain elevation, and then they disappear. Above that, there is only rock, short grass, and silence. The park protects an ecosystem that changes dramatically every few hundred meters or a few hundred feet of elevation, with chamois, golden eagles, and over 2,900 plant species. Climbing even higher, above 2,000 meters or 6,500 feet, glaciers have left their mark. 7 lakes arranged in steps across bare rock, each named after its shape. There is the tear, the eye, the kidney, and the twin. The water flows from one to the next by gravity, forming a connected and living system. The contrast between gray stone and deep blue water is exactly the image that stays with every visitor. Nessebar. A narrow peninsula connected to the mainland by an artificial isthmus, barely 400 meters, or about 1,300 feet wide. On this small stretch of land, surrounded by the Black Sea, 3,000 years of construction have piled up, one on top of the other. Thracians, Greeks, Romans, Byzantines, Ottomans, each left something behind. The medieval churches, nearly a dozen within just a few blocks, blend red bricks and white stones in decorative patterns found nowhere else. Sea wind drifts through the narrow alleyways, carrying the smell of salt. The city has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1983 and has withstood the test of time. Rhodope Mountains. In southern Bulgaria, the Rhodopes seem to go on forever. They spread across more than 14,000 square kilometers, or about 5,400 square miles, straddling Bulgaria and Greece. The valleys open slowly, as if the mountains want to conceal what lies inside. And they conceal a great deal because communities of Pomaks still live here, Bulgarian Muslims whose traditions have remained intact for centuries. Their stone houses follow the shape of the terrain. And then there is the forest, which covers almost everything. There are firs, beeches, and long silences. Rivers like the Arda carve deep gorges, and along these gorges, people built monasteries, villages, and narrow roads. These mountains are also one of the last refuges of European wildlife, with eagles and lynx moving quietly through the woods. Sofia. "3,000 years of history beneath a city that never stops growing." Sofia is the Bulgarian capital, but also one of the most ancient in all of Europe. It was founded by the Thracians, then conquered by the Romans, the Byzantines, and the Ottomans, and finally liberated in 1878. Every occupation left something behind. And here, unlike many other capitals, those layers are still visible. In the old town center, an Ottoman mosque, a medieval church, and a Roman building coexist just a few meters from each other. At the foot of Mount Vitosha, visible from almost every corner of the city, this capital has developed an intense urban life, with markets, cafes, and parks, without losing touch with nature. It is definitely a capital that does not take itself too seriously, and perhaps that is exactly its charm. Cape Kaliakra. Two kilometers, or about 1.2 miles of red rock, cutting straight into the Black Sea. And the walls drop sheer for 70 meters, or nearly 230 feet, to the water below. No imagination is needed to understand why every civilization built a fortress here. This place practically defends itself. Local legend tells of 40 Bulgarian girls who, during the Ottoman invasion, tied their hair together and threw themselves from the cliff rather than surrender. Today, this place is a nature reserve and habitat for dolphins and monk seals. The wind here never stops blowing, and at sunset, the light turns the stone into something that looks like rusted iron. Pirin National Park. Over 2,900 meters, or 9,500 feet of elevation, 118 glacial lakes, and forests of Bosnian pine, whose oldest specimen is over 1,300 years old. This park is geologically unlike the rest of Bulgaria. There is granite and limestone rock that glaciers shaped into glacial cirque and sharp ridges. Alpine trails connect the mountain huts, where you sleep at elevations that simply do not exist elsewhere in the Balkans. At the base of all this sits Bansko, a small town that found a way to live the mountain year-round. In winter, it operates as a ski resort, while in summer it serves as a base camp for high-altitude trekking. The historic center preserves 18th century stone fortress houses, built to resist bandits. Varna. Bulgaria's third largest city, facing the Black Sea, with a port that has never stopped operating since the time of the Greeks. But the real reason Varna matters is underground. In 1972, during excavations for a power line, a necropolis dating back 6,500 years was uncovered. Inside, workers found the oldest worked gold in the world. Necklaces, bracelets, scepters, and over 3,000 objects that rewrote the history of European civilization. Today, they are housed in the city's archaeological museum. Outside the museum, though, Varna functions as a modern seaside city with seafront parks, urban beaches, and a botanical garden that runs all the way to the coast. Shipka Memorial. In 1877, on this mountain pass, the future of Bulgaria was decided. The Russian army and Bulgarian volunteers held their position against Ottoman forces for 4 days. When they ran out of ammunition, they hurled stones, logs, and the bodies of fallen comrades, and they held. That battle led to independence. Today, a 31-meter or 102-foot tower monument marks the exact spot, reached by climbing 894 steps. Inside, the original war flags are on display. Outside, a view stretches across the Rose Valley, all the way to the horizon. Sozopol. Founded in 610 BC as a Greek colony under the name Apollonia, it occupies a rocky peninsula stretching into the Black Sea. Traditional dark wood houses rest on stone foundations, with upper floors that hang over the street. This design was meant to gain floor space without widening the base. There are narrow alleyways everywhere, and they all lead to the sea. During excavations inside the Church of Saints Cyril and Methodius, relics attributed to Saint John the Baptist were discovered, transforming the town into a pilgrimage destination. In summer, the city hosts an arts festival, while the rest of the year it returns to being a quiet coastal town. Balkan Mountains. A mountain range that cuts Bulgaria in two from west to east for over 500 kilometers, or about 310 miles. To the north, the climate is continental, cold and harsh. To the south, it turns Mediterranean and mild. This natural barrier has shaped everything in the country: agriculture, settlements, movement, and even warfare. The forests shelter wolves, bears, and deer, while the valleys hide monasteries, built deliberately where no one could easily reach them. These mountains, also called Stara Planina, are not just geography. They are the backbone of the country. Melnik. The smallest city in Bulgaria, with roughly 200 inhabitants. Despite that, it holds official city status, inherited from its past, when it was a major trading hub with 20,000 people. Then, history moved on. What remains is a village almost frozen in time, with white stone fortress houses perched on sandstone formations. The streets are quiet, the alleys narrow, and the homes partly abandoned. This city survives as an urban fossil, too small to be a real city, but too proud to stop being one. Petrified Forest. "20 minutes from Varna, in the middle of flat and arid terrain, hundreds of stone columns rise from the ground. Up to 7 meters, or about 23 feet tall, hollow inside, and planted in the earth with no apparent logic. Despite the name, they are not fossilized trees. Their origin is still debated, with some geologists suggesting they are limestone formations created 50 million years ago from bacterial activity on the floor of a sea that no longer exists. Others propose different theories, but none is definitive. What you see, however, is a landscape that resembles nothing else in Europe. Koprivshtitsa. On April 20th, 1876, in this small mountain town, the uprising against the Ottoman Empire broke out, the one that would change Bulgarian history. The first gunshot was fired by Todor Kableshkov from the house that today is a museum. The revolt was crushed in blood, but its echo reached European newspapers and pushed Russia to intervene. Beyond history, Koprivshtitsa is a concentrated showcase of Bulgarian Renaissance architecture. There are brightly painted houses with interiors carved in wood, built by wealthy merchants in the 18th century. The town looks frozen in that era, and in a sense, it truly is. Arda River. It rises in the Rhodopes and flows for 290 kilometers, or about 180 miles, crossing southern Bulgaria before entering Greece and joining the Maritsa. Its path has carved deep canyons into volcanic rock, creating a landscape that alternates narrow gorges with artificial reservoirs of intense green. Three dams have transformed the river's course into a series of lakes that today attract kayakers and fishermen. But the wild stretch through the gorges remains untouched. Vultures and eagles nest on the rocky walls, and along the banks lie the remains of Thracian sanctuaries. Buzludzha Monument. At 1,441 meters, or 4,728 feet, on the summit of Mount Buzludzha, there is a concrete disc that looks like it landed from the future. The Bulgarian Communist Party built it in 1981 to celebrate the socialist movement, and it cost millions. Then in 1989, the regime collapsed. And since then, nobody has known what to do with it. The government never wanted to demolish it, but never restored it either. The roof has partially collapsed, the mosaics are crumbling, and wind pushes through every crack. Iskar Gorge and Prohodna Cave. The Iskar is the only Bulgarian river that rises south of the Stara Planina and still manages to cross it. Rather than going around the mountain range, it cuts straight through. The result is a gorge 65 kilometers, or about 40 miles long, between Sofia and the Danubian plain, with rocky walls that in some places exceed 300 meters, or nearly 1,000 feet. Nearby, Prohodna Cave opens up, one of the most extraordinary natural formations in the Balkans. It is a through cave with two entrances and a vault that reaches 45 meters, or about 148 feet in height. On the ceiling, erosion has carved two oval openings, symmetrical and perfectly shaped, that filter light and sky down below. The cave can be walked through on foot without any equipment, and it is one of the most visited and photographed sites in all of Bulgaria. Mount Vitosha. From anywhere in Sofia, just look up. Vitosha is right there, less than an hour from the city center. It reaches 2,290 meters, or 7,513 feet, with a so-called Black Peak, and it was the first natural park in the Balkans. That proximity has shaped the daily life of the capital's residents. The mountain, in fact, for them is a gym, a park, a refuge, and a habit. The high-altitude peat bogs also filter the water that feeds the city's springs. Sofia, without this mountain at its back, would be a different city altogether. Troyan Monastery. It is the third largest monastery in Bulgaria, founded in the 16th century in a secluded valley of the Central Balkans. But the reason it matters is something else entirely. During Ottoman rule, it became a secret base of the Bulgarian revolutionary movement. Vasil Levski, the national hero, founded an underground committee here, and a hidden room behind a wall served as a refuge. The carved wooden iconostasis is the work of masters from the Triavna school, while the exterior frescoes blend saints and scenes from everyday life with a realism unusual for religious art of that era. Chudnite mostove. Two natural marble arches suspended at 1,450 meters, or about 4,757 feet above sea level, in the western Rhodopes. The largest has a span of 15 meters, or about 49 feet, and stands 12 meters, or nearly 40 feet tall. Nobody built them. They formed from the partial collapse of a karst cave as water dissolved the rock over millennia. The ceiling gave way at several points, and what remains standing are these bridges. The name means exactly the marvelous bridges, and it goes back centuries. You reach them with a short walk through the forest. Nothing strenuous, and the feeling once you arrive is of standing inside a cathedral without a roof. Burgas. It is not a city people usually choose, but it is the one they end up staying in. It is Bulgaria's fourth largest city by population and revolves around its port and the coastal lakes that surround it. Three natural basins, where pelicans, flamingos, and over 250 species of migratory birds take up residence. Lake Tanasovsko has produced salt for centuries, and its pink salt pans recall those found in Africa. The seafront promenade, called the Sea Garden, runs for kilometers or miles along the coast, linking beaches, open-air sculptures, and an outdoor theater. It is a city that feels different from the others, perhaps because it works, or because it is genuine. Petrified. Carved directly into the rock of a hilltop in the eastern Rhodopes, this is a site that few people outside Bulgaria know. And that is a mistake. Traces of settlement go back 7,000 years, making it one of the oldest ceremonial complexes in Europe. When archaeologists began excavating in 2000, they found layer upon layer, with evidence of Thracians, Romans, and Byzantines. Every civilization had built on top of the previous one, without shifting by a single meter. Not a single brick was used in the construction of this place. Everything is cut from living rock. Vidin. It sits in the far northwestern corner of Bulgaria, where the Danube curves and the Serbian border is within sight. Vidin remained isolated for decades, and that isolation preserved it. The Baba Vita fortress, overlooking the Danube directly, is the only medieval Bulgarian castle to survive intact. We find massive walls, corner towers, and a moat that is still recognizable. The historic center preserves an Ottoman synagogue, a mosque, and an Orthodox church just steps from one another. Three religious architectures that speak in silence of all those who inhabited this city across the centuries. White Cliffs of Biala. Between Varna and Burgas, the coastline changes character entirely. Sandy beaches give way to white rock walls that plunge into turquoise water. The cliffs are composed of marl and limestone, pale sedimentary rocks that erosion continuously reshapes. Arches, caves, and overhangs form and change shape with each passing year. It is one of the least known stretches of the Black Sea coast, and for that very reason, it still holds a character that elsewhere has long since disappeared. Beglik Tash. No signs pointed to it until 2003. For millennia, this Thracian sanctuary remained hidden in a forest near the Black Sea coast. When archaeologists identified it, they found enormous granite blocks arranged to function as a solar calendar. During the solstices, light passes through precise gaps and illuminates specific points. The Thracians used it for rituals connected to the sun and to fertility. Unlike Stonehenge in England, the rocks here were not transported. They were already in place. Closing this visual journey through Bulgaria, we have moved from the Black Sea coast to the peaks of the Balkans, exploring together not just places, but also traditions that make every corner of this land unique. We hope the images and stories shared along the way have enriched your understanding and inspired the desire to personally explore the extraordinary beauty of this country.